Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Yes, this channel is devoted to long-form content, um, vlogging, podcasting, if you will, in a audio and visual form. This week, this week we're talking about the Medusa. We love to deep dive into simple subjects. If you would like to find out more, to tune in for Monster Monday yesterday about Medusa, but we're going to continue on our conversation. Today is a Discord Tuesday. It's kind of a grab bag, but we've been, we meaning myself, has been talking about mechanics in our tabletop RPGs. And of course, we have World Building Wednesday, third pillar of Exploration Thursday, and lastly, Future Friday. So please tune in for that if you want to join in live or catch it later. Yeah, each week we do 5 hours of content about one particular subject. It's a lot of content, but if you're bored, you're at work, you're driving or something like that, just listen on in. Anyway, let's get back to the Medusa. All right, so I wanted to talk about, since it is Discord Tuesday and it is a grab bag, maybe we'll talk about some mechanics up front, and then as the show goes on, if you guys have any other ideas or flavor or anything like that, we'll break off into some other things. All right, so one of the crazy ideas I was thinking of is mechanically, how do we represent a Medusa in our classic tabletop games if a player character either wants to have a Medusa as a patron. Let's say if you wanted to play like a warlock type character and this individual is granting you great power, or maybe a player character is somehow related to the Medusa bloodline, meaning like they have it's in their blood, or they were born from it, or maybe they themselves were descended from one or more individuals that were cursed either by the gods, or even in going into an old temple. Their old grandmother went to an old temple or something, or it could even be raising a fist to the gods, and then the gods came down and were like, "What did you say to me?" And then punished maybe one of their ancestors, and the PC has drawn from it. And lastly, maybe there's even something in your setting where the player characters are able to gain power, but there's a cursed aspect to it. So, or maybe it's just another divergent method of magic. Maybe there is all the various schools of magic and study exist, but for those who are unable to master the magic, maybe their body transforms, or it begins corrupting them if they unfortunately are not able to control it. So the first thing that comes to mind is, for me, is you guys know I always talk about reskinning things all the time, and there's lots of character options that I think, when placed together, could really embrace it. Like, for example, if a player character, say, picks a cleric as a character class, but the cleric either as part maybe worships a pantheon of gods, or you've decided in your setting that instead of specifically the gods, the player characters can choose, like, if we're going like a Greek and Roman, maybe they can even choose one or more of the demigods, the ones that are like half mortal, half divine, or even those that have been punished by the gods themselves. And so I'm thinking of abilities like anything that has to deal with paralysis, or stasis, like a hold person type of spell or something like that. I think would really fit into like a Medusa Gorgon styled powers or something. Zeron says, I like the idea of a Medusa Gorgon race just being a thing, because curses are way too often and overused, like Kenku, Tiefling, Dragonborn, Goblin, Orc, Harpy, etc. Yeah, they just are a natural people with inherent petrification magic, sure. And again, we don't need to, we don't need to stick to the stick to the canon, if, as it were, right? Like, the canon is you look into the Medusa's eyes or the Gorgon's eyes and you turn to stone. It could be an ability that they're able to activate and deactivate, especially if they're part of the world. Maybe they're able to unpetrify the people that they've petrified. And again, like we said yesterday, maybe the petrification itself is different. Like, it's not just plain stone. It could be something far more valuable, or it could be something different in your world. Like, we turned you into a tree, or turned you into, a coral reef, or something like that. We even thought of, what is a spider, that you don't turn into stone, but you just become encased in a spider-like webbing that you have to, magic or something like that has to release you. But if there is a, like, Medusa Gorgon race, like Zevron is saying, like, there's already tieflings and dragonborn goblins and things. Imagine if, all of these creatures that are out there in the classic Dungeons and Dragons world. I mean, they've used even lycanthropes for shifters, I believe, and doppelgangers for changelings. So this is just, this is weird to say, but it would be a natural outgrowth of this kind of creature, so, or monster, or whatever. So having, like, what are some things, like, in hold person, entangle type of abilities would work. Maybe there are combining that with some kind of, like, poison, whether it's like a, what is it, acid arrow and poison something. I can't remember the cantrip or what have you. But anyway, combining a lot of those together would work, I believe. Maybe even throwing in some charming or summoning of specific types of monsters, like reptilian monsters, if you want to stick with the snake-bodied, snake-headed kind of thing. It might even be a form of druid, the druidic class. Having a druidic class related to the Medusa and Gorgon would be just as, I think it would fit just as well, because especially if it is a matter of not just the natural world, but the world as given to the people of the prime material plane by the gods themselves. So there may be a part of it where not only are they learning the magic of the Medusa, but they're also embracing the emotional pain and suffering or rage or whatever that is centered around the Medusa and her sisters. It'd be kind of cool. Zephyr says, I heard of one where they encased creatures they hunted with crystal, which would suffocate their prey. Being able to restrain their targets would allow them to not need greater strength. Yeah, and again, we don't need, like, okay, there's the Medusa turns people to stone, but in our world, we could make up a reason, like, why they're doing it. Like, are they holding people in stasis for I don't know, the coming creature that's about to come from the far off dark realms or something? Are they being used for food? Are they going to be used as sacrifices later on? Zev continues, the crystal broke with their venom and could be given to children as a type of candy. That's like rock candy. Yeah, but it is possible. Maybe the venom itself is able to transform them back into their mortal being. And remember, yesterday we don't know, Kitty. We don't know exactly, like, what's going on with the person that is petrified. Are they in stasis and unable to see the world around them? Are they aware of their surroundings? They just can't. It's like they're encased rather than transformed. Um, are they aware of the passage of time, or does it take magic to do so? Like, could you speak with them through telepathy, or speak with the dead, or if you became like an astral or an ethereal form, could you pass into a petrified victim and then speak with them or draw their spirit out or something? I don't know, but we could always make those decisions within the gaming world. Also, who's to say that like a Baba Yaga or like an old hag or something, that the gorgons in the world don't draw to them individuals to teach them. Like, for example, some kind of alchemist or artificer might be may learn from a Medusa as well, and of course not having the power to turn people to stone, but it just so happens that their mentor or their patron or something just happens to be one, you know. As everyone's like, it's like a Jolly Rancher, but used to kill. I remember the old cartoon. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll? Let me see. One, two. Hard, crunchy outside, soft and gooey on the inside. Yep. All right. So, but yeah, there are other character options, and maybe there's even like some learned resistances to it, and or maybe even being able to hold it and deflect it, kind of. And we don't have to limit ourselves to a Medusa, the the classic Medusa vision, looking her in the eyes and then turning to stone. If we change it around to, say, like a siren's or a harpy song, and hearing the noise. So instead of vision, it might be through hearing that you transform. It might be. It doesn't necessarily mean it's their eyes. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe player characters have a small mark on their forehead, and it's a third eye. And when the third eye opens up, that's where their magic is able to emanate from, or something like that. Heck, it could even be, maybe it's not necessarily their eyes, but it's their, if they draw their, like a somatic spell kind of thing, like if they do a certain thing with their hands, um causing a certain pattern in the air or something, then if you were exposed to it, then you become, you're turned to stone or diamond or jade or amethyst or something of that nature. Also, you could go the opposite direction and have like a core of player characters that hunt down these kind of things. So, of course, we have like vampire hunters. We have like undead people that go after undead. What is it? Rangers going after giants or goblinoids or something. Maybe you've decided in your world to have other specific classifications of creatures, like these are the accursed from the divine, and you hunt them down, like the Kraken and the Medusa and the Minotaur or something. And if you really want to like really dive deep into like a Greek mythological world, where in your world there's like, it's basically Bronze Age. That'd be kind of cool to have a ranger or a paladin who's like a ranger who hunts down the Minotaur and what are some other accursed creatures from Greek myths other than the Medusa and Minotaur. There was, Cerberus, what's some other ones? I can't even, I'm thinking of so many different Greek myths and legends and things like that. The Cyclops, the Cyclops is another one. What's it? Talos, the giant, could be one. And I know this is going well away from the Medusa, but imagine player character options that align with the heroes and monsters of the world. So, for example, there might be, say, a paladin's order aligned with Achilles, or a barbarian choice that aligns with Hercules, or I don't know, Perseus and Odysseus and Theseus, and all of them, and maybe all these, like, I don't know whether, I guess it would be, I don't know if you get kind of kind of funny, but maybe sorcerer would go along with Midas touching people and turning them to gold, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, Tesla puts it in here, the wiki page for a list of Greek mythological creatures. Yeah. I think griffins were thrown in there and a Pegasus was thrown in there as well. So why not? Zev says maybe things that are petrified become like weeping angels from Doctor Who, statues that move when you blink. Um, well, remember, it's not necessarily reserved from that. We've even had, there have been people who have um, seen or claim to have seen statues that have started to weep. And so maybe there is a pain or suffering that people are going through uh, when they were turned to stone, and maybe they do start to weep, or maybe they move so subtly that over time, like over the course of years, or tens of years, or hundreds of years, they're able to um, move their body in just very slight methods and such. Yeah, Zev says you look away to fight the Medusa, and they get like a 90-foot movement speed. Make your players roll Constitution saves to not blink. Silly, but oh man, there's so many. I think the Medusa itself is such a creature, so tied to the mythological creation of it, as well as a lot of the Greek mythology, that um, I don't think it would be a bad thing to, yeah, I don't think it would be a bad thing to embrace it. Even like Zevron says, even he says I like the horror aspect, and I do too. Especially if you want to use like the uh, fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons has a um, side effect of horror attached to it, and so to make this creature as well as many others far more horrible, you could add in a sanity check, much like from Call of Cthulhu. And if you started adding in like the sanity check when, an NPC or one of the player characters gets, almost or turned to stone, and you make that sanity check, and you're like, holy shit, we need to run for it, Yes, I'm well aware that it's kind of like it's an optional rule, and it's also kind of tacked on because Dungeons and Dragons pretty much lends itself to being heroic, super heroic, rather than worrying about the death of you. But sure, I very much could very well be turned into something like that, and I could even see reskinning some other monsters to fit into the pantheon that the Medusa has arranged around itself. So, like, I could see a Medusa having pet basilisks, as an example, or the Medusa has like a cadre of like harpies as its like aerial warriors or something of that nature. Yeah. So everyone says, and yet insanity horror is an optional rule in 5e. There's a lot of optional rules I think that we've in the especially in the Dungeon Master's Guide and stuff that we've kind of like overlooked in 5e. And I think a lot of people have overlooked it, including like everything from modifying encounters and creating your own races and modifying your own creatures and healing. There's a whole bunch of like optional rules to ramp up or reduce healing based on the setting that you want. And instead of, it's like you don't need to argue it. You can just use the optional rule and be done with it. And it's already written. But Zev says a gargoyle could be a demon they fought and enslaved. Could be It could be one that they enslaved, because gargoyles are the we they are written and we imagine them as the stone watchers on the parapets of wherever they live. So maybe they are somehow in league, or like you said, they could have fought and enslaved it. Maybe they coaxed it somehow to fall to its side, or use some sort of alchemy to transform something or someone. I don't know. Blending blending them together, I think, really works. How you would do it, I don't know. Or the Medusa is looking for a way to absolve themselves of this accursed nature, and but along the way, maybe a larger, greater demon is like, I'll break the curse for you, but you must do a thing for me, and in return, here's a couple of servants that I'm going to give to you. I could see a not a demon. I could see one of the devils making that kind of making a deal with the devil kind of thing, like, yeah, I'll save you, but you got to do something for me first, you know. And by the way, here's a couple of half dozen servants for your use to get what you want, you know. Yeah, I could see that. And again, the Medusa doesn't need to be a singular creature. It doesn't even need to be female either. Although, classically it is. It doesn't need to be female. It could be a pathway or a blood lineage, like a sorceress blood lineage instead of dragon. Instead, you have Gorgon to replace it, and instead of or even heck, you could even reskin Dragonborn to be them. So instead of like a typical breath weapon that causes harm, or maybe the breath weapon does cause harm, but it's described as if pieces of the flesh, instead of transforming entirely to stone, the the flesh of the target that is touched by, I don't know, a gas or something like that, starts, or they try to avoid their eyes, and maybe their surface flesh turns to stone and falls off, and so it's literally the flesh falling off of the individual before they're able to really embrace their full nature as being one of the Gorgons themselves. Um, I could also see much like, I know today, player characters are like, well, tieflings and dragonborn are just like everybody else. Humanity, accepts them. But when they were first introduced in the game, it was within the culture of the setting that they were hated. I mean, it's not really an accepted thing to have people walk around that like, yeah, I've got demon and devil blood in me, and people were just like shrugging their shoulders, like, oh, really? Not a big deal. It's kind of scary to have that around, and dragons have been terrorizing dungeons for I guess 5 ages now. Uh, the fact that humanity just shrugs their shoulders and goes, it's just a half dragon thing walking around, not a big deal. But if we're going to go that far with it, um, I could see I could see other creatures as well being in the world where they've embraced their accursed nature, and um, are either seeking as a bloodline to find a cure for themselves, and traveling around the world, or trying to gather others who are of their same bloodline, and then learning from each other, and that's how their power grows, i.e., that's how you gain levels. So I could see that as well. Zevran says, imagine defending a Medusa from an attack, and she goes to one of the statues in her trophy room. She takes a drop of her blood or venom, causes the sword of one statue to sizzle as rock breaks off, and she just gifts the PCs with a magic item. Oh yeah, hell yeah. Um, I again, for me, I like the Medusa because, or as a concept, because it's like a tragic monster. Like at the same time, you can say to yourself, well, the Medusa needs to be put down, right? Like, I get it's a Gorgon, but yeah, it needs to be killed. Yet at the same time, we can we can also understand why it's doing what it's doing. And if this person became cursed, and the Gorgon runs off and goes to hide in her empty castle or something, surrounded by her statues, and more people were like, carrying the pitchforks to go kill her, and she's like, listen, all I want you to do is leave me alone, and you keep trying to kill me, then I'm gonna clap back and open up a can of whoop ass if you keep this up. So it could be that the player characters go to the Medusa, in effect trying to defend her, to say, listen, we're not here to kill you. We're actually here to absolve you of the crimes that they're claiming, because they're actually causing more problems than a little bit. So absolutely, could she? Why we don't need to have a treasure hoard stuck in a corner, right? Treasure can come from any number of places. Yesterday we talked about, killing the Medusa or the Griffin or whatever, or one of her sisters, and carving, reaching into the heart, and the heart is literally a philosopher's stone. You know, um, Having her use her venom to unpetrify a warrior who has a great sword that is magical, or um, things other than human beings or humanoids could be turned to stone. So maybe a certain type of animal is released from its stony and capture, and becomes like a familiar or a pet, or maybe bring back one of the. I used to love the figurines of Wondrous Power. Maybe she has a bunch of those that have been turned to quote unquote stone, or some stone-like thing, and she hands over a small pocket-sized elephant, and the PC is like, "What's this about?" And she says, "Well, just give the command word," and gives a command word, and the PC, yep, says it, and then it turns into a giant-sized war elephant or something, or a hunting dog, or a black panther named Guinevere or Guinevere or whatever the hell it is. um, You're so bad, Zeb. Zeb runs like Medusa, a creature made of crippling depression. A little more true than a little bit, but yeah, absolutely. Why not? I just like the idea that the Medusa encompasses, like, encapsulates so many different elements all together into one thing, because it on a very thin line, you can make the Medusa quite horrible, and needs to be put down, or move across that same line and go, we need to protect or cure the Medusa. The Medusa could even be like overcome with the bestial rage that she doesn't want in the first place. Um, Zeb's like, figurine of Wondrous. Those are just action figures, aren't they? The coolest action figures ever. Hell yeah. Yeah, Dead Man's like Forgotten Realms. The wiki, Gwen Wyver. I don't know. Whatever however you want to pronounce. Uh, um, 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 R. Salvatore's spellings or something like that. He's got some strange names in his world. Um. Anyway, yes. So yes, the Medusa to me is like, when the gods come down and punish you if you use that kind of origin. It's pretty damn nasty. And if you want to think of it like the X-Men, where a bloodline causes you to become a certain way, and there's not much you can do about it, that's also a thing. And think about it. She's essentially, yeah, that's why I said Guinevere. Like, married, had sex with Lancelot. Yeah, Guinevere. Um, I'll, I'm not going to go there. I'm just thinking of this Black Panther and whatever. So anyway, um, there's like a person that is overcome with a kind of like rage, or heck, you could even think of the Medusa like, I don't know, the X-Men Cyclops or something like. Hashtag not my Medusa. So bad. Oh shit. Um, Also, because so many different creatures in the pantheon of Dungeons and Dragons have come from so many different divergent realms, you could combine a lot of these things together. Like, for example, how many stone-like creatures would probably be immune to the Medusa's um, gaze, or even created from the Medusa's gaze, i.e., we were talking about the gargoyle, like a fiendish creature stoned by the Medusa could become a gargoyle, or I can imagine a basilisk having absolutely, being completely, and of course the Medusa being completely immune to the basilisk's gaze, and vice versa. Um, yeah, you disrespect the Medusa comparing them to Cyclops. Yeah. Um, Gwen Havar, it doesn't matter. Does it really matter? It's a made-up name pronounced and or mispronounced by the person who created it. There is no when this whole pronunciation argument that's going back to the first edition is non-issue. These are artificial things that don't exist, and unless the creator has decided that that's how they're going to be pronounced, it doesn't really matter. And also, your language has a lot to do with it. People in France are going to pronounce things in Dungeons and Dragons a whole lot different than they will in Germany or Madagascar or Thailand or Australia. So yeah, it's a non-issue. Um, uh, Also, I think mechanically, in terms of like the it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, sure. I'm sure he has a pronunciation for it. Again, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like you're hurting a artificial fictional character's uh, you know personality or something like that by making a pronunciation that you've already known. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just like, how is it, Asmodeus or Asmodeus? Maybe one of us should ask him. Yeah, all names are made up. Exactly. Is my name, DBJ, or I don't know how you could pronounce those letters in some other language or something, and the answer would be correct. um anyway, bold words for someone wrong. Yeah, everybody wants to be right. So anyway, the another aspect of the Medusa is the origin of the Medusa, and it does not necessarily need to be something that is singular. So if there is a curse, I don't know, like, let's go back to the original, like the gods, I don't know, Aphrodite wants to curse one of the most beautiful women in the world or something, or someone's raised their fist up to the gods. Exactly. Someone's raised their fist up to the gods and it's just like, I hate the gods, or whatever, and they're cursed. Then that means in this world there are gods cursing people, right? And the Medusa may not be the only one, either meaning there are more gorgons around, or there are other accursed individuals being accursed by the gods themselves, and that could be the impetus for the world in which the people who are accursed, uh, they are the ones who are out to get their revenge on the gods in the first place. And that would be kind of a cool, like, level 1 through 20 kind of event where all the player characters are playing people who have been wrongly affected by the gods themselves, and they, like, whether it's themselves or family members or communities or something, and they are reaching, they are all attempting to reach their way up to a Mount Olympus type place to exact their revenge, or to cure these afflictions, or to have these individuals atone for the things that they've done. Now, a lot of times they are also anecdotal, right? Like where um, the gods punish someone because we as people, are humanity, are trying to teach a lesson, like, well, this person did this thing because they did something wrong, and you as a child shouldn't do this wrong thing. Or um, a, a leader of a community does a thing and they are it's like the Midas touch, right? It's the Midas curse. You be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. And so in this world, maybe the great powers of the world, i.e. player character options, are accessed because they, much like the character class Warlock, it's thank you, Harry. Much like the character class the Warlock, maybe too many people are making wishes and getting exactly what they wish for. Thank you very much for the super chat there too. You don't have to do that. But Harry, the only individual that I know of that's older than myself, it's proven, says depending on where you get the word from, Greek or other. Yeah, I guess he's referring to pronunciations and things. But again, it's not like there's pronunciation police out there. So yeah. um, Oh man, there's also Zev says again. Thank you very much for the super chat there too. I really appreciate it. Zevron says I like the idea that the gods choose to gift a bloodline of people with the powers of the Medusa, giving them inherent magic to defend themselves. And again, it, if the world, like flipping it on its head. Thanks for giving me your thumb. I can feel it from here, there, Harry. I can feel it from here. Okay. Um, Depending on how the world has been shaped, maybe humanity itself are like the bastards, and everyone cursed is the hero, right? Um, I suppose you could say that would be much like the cartoon Gargoyles, where the player characters play the outsiders, but they're the heroes, while society itself is like arrogant and um, self-absorbed and very judgmental about people and things of that nature. And like you said, maybe the gods are have given the Medusa like powers to people in a bloodline so that they can defend themselves. And maybe the desire is to right the wrong of the Medusa being cursed in the first place, which could put the player characters in kind of a divine war. Like one of the gods was less like Aphrodite's like, she, no mortal woman can be as beautiful as me. Boom, you're a Medusa. And then one of the other gods is like, yeah, that's not right, but I can't undo what you did, but I can defend the first Medusa by making a bloodline. Like, oh, if you want to be like that, fine. Let's just embrace the whole thing, and then makes this giant, this massive bloodline of these other Medusae, and they start to spread and defend themselves and make their own community and stuff. So I very much see that. And again, thank you very much for the super chat there, Harry. It's really appreciated, man. It's like a it's like a kick in the gonads, but in a good way. Anyway, Zevron continues to say, and people just demonize them because they were jealous, similar to how certain heroes have to deal with jealous people who try to steal from them or be famous by being the ones to kill them. Hell, not just in ancient civilization, that kind of happens today. When someone from very limited background comes up and fights their way to the top from very mundane origins, and everyone claps their hands and goes, wow, they raised themselves up from the bootstraps. They get to the very top, and then everybody wants to rip them down, right? That's how we do. If you take that writ large, yeah, I could see Medusa fitting into that, where someone's very a commoner is more beautiful than the queen herself, and the common people are like, yeah, she should marry the prince or whatever, and everyone loves her, and the royal families are like, no, and then the the mystics of the world, the religious of the world are like, she's just a commoner, the gods should curse her, and then they curse her as the Medusa, and then everyone's like, yay, we took her down, and stuff, yeah. Yep, Omen's like, yep, you see many Filipinos trying to shoot down Manny Pacquiao. So I kind of do it too. It's more because of politics than anything. Well, yeah, I mean that's a thing, right? It's a defense mechanism for our survival. We have a um, on a very base level, we want to know that we are superior to the things that may harm us, and we want to know how to take down the things that are better than us, that are more superior to us. So it is a very animalistic lizard brain kind of thing. Um, oh, there's fire. We want to know how to put the fire out. Oh, it's a huge fire. Hell, I want to know how to get away from it, or I want to know the thing that will get that big fire taken down, because that big fire could kill me, and I don't want things around that could kill me. And in a social setting, socially, we fear those things that are socially better than us, more charismatic, uh, richer, more prestige, things like that. So yeah. Now Harry says, myth took it to be Gorgons, not where the myth took it to be Gorgons, not where she was cursed. We talked about that yesterday, where the variations of the Medusa myth of being cursed and her sisters, and whether it was like um, and how that accursed nature came about. So we're not specifically analyzing the specific myth. We're just taking it and ripping it apart more than putting it back together, I guess would be the way to say it. But yes, and the difference between like the Gorgons were all of the Medusa-like ones, but the Medusa is actually a name because she has two sisters. Yeah, but we're ripping it apart more than putting it together. Zevron08 says it's also super problematic by having so many female coded creatures be punished for having immense beauty. Become seen as a problems the creators have with women in real life, like banshees and sirens. Why have personal therapy when players kill them for you? Yeah, well, it's a legacy thing, right? And actually, since we're going to go into Black History Month next week, we're going to talk about legacy, um, the legacy things. There are lots of, like, I hate to say this, but there are lots of mythological shrill women, right? Um, that are angry and shrill and pissed off. Now, mind you, in the larger scope of things, there are lots of male creatures. Most of them pretty bestial, not too bright. Most of them are pretty stupid and sexual beasts. Whereas the women tend to be like the codified as like angry and shrill and loud and things like that, right? Like banshees, sirens, harpies, and hell, those mythological creatures have even been come into pop culture terminology to call a woman a siren, a banshee, a harpy. You know what I mean? Like it's even been translated into being used, those things today. So I do agree that those. I mean, it's just like, well, hell, you, if you want to go into more deep things, most of the people who wrote those stories about Conan and Lovecraft and Cthulhu and all that kind of stuff, Edgar Rice Burroughs and that whole pulp action era, most of them were pretty damn racist. So it's, I mean, you can't apologize for it. It just is a thing. Um, I'm just happy that those people are dead, so I don't have to worry about, like, um, enjoying something created by a person that I personally, would would personally want to punch in the mouth, but whatever. But so yes, a lot of those things are legacy created. Like I said, a Medusa doesn't need to be female at all, nor shrill, nor just angry. Like we have the ability to change those things today. So why not go after it? I mean, why not do that? Omen's like puts in Kent Kentarides equals female centaur, or is that even an insult? I don't, I don't know. I don't know if there's. I don't think female centaurs are called something different. I think they're just centaurs that happen to be female. Um, so yeah, but that brings up a whole like you can't. It's very difficult to reshape things in the past. You can only just reshape them in the future, right? So yeah, so I agree with you. I actually agree with you, Zev. Like a lot of those, there were a lot of female coded creatures at that time. I guess more or less given to emotional outbursts versus the male ones that just became like, the Minotaur ate flesh, the Cyclops probably ate flesh, ogres ate flesh, that kind of thing. So, uh, yeah. But I do like that comment, like, why have personal therapy when you can make players kill them for you? Um, Zev says the things with legacy stuff, though, is they have changed legacy things over the decades. So why keep it? Well, because we don't want to get into the habit of either erasing or modifying history. Um, History is what it is, for good or bad, right? So you don't. Sorry, I just saw another comment. So you don't want to modify history. You want to keep the history the way it is. Now, you may not like the history, and that's the whole point. You can someone can leave or people can leave a legacy of asinine things, and then what we do is we refer back to that and go, hey, remember back when this was cool? Yeah, it's not cool anymore. Let's not do that again, rather than erase history so that we just repeat it again. That's the whole point. That's where that whole comment about learning from history so we don't repeat it. So am I personally like are there things out there that I'm offended by because they exist? Sure. But am I a person that feels like they should be erased? No. It, yeah, it should still be there. I just think we should learn from it. Omen says H.P. Lovecraft was probably just a shut-in. I think his racism was because he didn't want to associate with other people, leading him to assume stuff about strangers. Yeah, and there was a little bit of a social thing with that too, right? I mean, the man wanted to sell books, and if the social environment at the time was that people wanted to see themselves as superior, you're going to want to write books that encapsulate that. So whether he was a racist or he was writing things to appeal to the racist nature of the people that wanted to read that stuff, I don't know. Um, I love that dead man with the like. Well, if you want a female centaur insult, you could just use bitchatar. That would definitely get your ass kicked, and I mean literally. Like, yeah. Oh hell yeah. Uh, yeah. Omen says, do note that one of his contemporaries, William Hope Hodgson, was somehow less racist. Well, yeah, and like I said, it's a lot of these things were of its time, which we're going into next week. We can't take the subject and go to next week. That's the whole point of next week, where we go into where we're going to talk about it generally. How do we include slavery and racism into our role-playing games, and go into that with like some nuance, like how do we include it, what are the origins of it, when slavery ends, what happens then, what are some of the cultural touchstones that people have, if they are considered a minority in your world, instead of just making it very black and white, like elves hate dwarves, dwarves hate elves. Can we there are people in the role-playing community that, as a side effect of having fun, kind of want to learn new things, like, hey, I want to play, and you fill in the blank, because I would like to know what it would feel like to be this other thing, or this other person, or live in this other experience, this other person's thing. So that's what we're going to do next week. Yeah, kicked by a female centaur would be very painful. I think being kicked by any centaur would be painful. using that word against one would definitely hurt a whole hell of a lot more, right? Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Omen's like, yeah, don't be fooled. Even women admit that being hit there hurts like hell. Yeah, yeah. Oh hell yeah. Oh, I think we went off the deep end with some of this. But again, like we always do, hell yeah, we always like to dive down deep. And yes, could hell, if you wanted to in your game, like let's say you wanted to erase or flip over or destroy the idea of the Medusa being like, the the beatific woman that now looks ugly and she's just shrill, and flip that on its head like Zev was talking about, where the player characters literally have to defend the Medusa, and that you find out that she's not like that. Like you find out that she's really actually pretty nice person, and I mean, other than the accursed nature, she's like pretty nice, and probably would be, if it wasn't for the fact that she was so nice, maybe wouldn't have been cursed in the first place, right? Assuming that there is a curse, or maybe there's um, an affliction through a bloodline or something like that, and trying to alleviate the effects of the bloodline. So yeah, flipping it on its head, hell yeah. And think about it, even in our own current role playing, we've been flipping a hell of a lot of things on their head anyway. Um, Getting rid of those very old tropes to embrace a different way of gaming, and so we're making headway. I think so. Every generation of ours, we learn from what we suppose we change our ethical and moral standards to fit in within whatever time we're in, for good or bad. And sometimes we go backwards, sometimes we take a couple steps forward, and there's nothing bad about that. Um, it's just, now I do agree with you, Zev, where you say that things with legacy stuff, they change legacy over decades, so why keep it? I, the problem though, this is a hard thing to choose for everyone, and I can't make that choice for you because we're getting to the end here. So let's go a little philosophical here. Um, I think one of the issues is, like, let's come up with let's take something away from the okay, um, the the gods. Okay, here's Aphrodite, and Aphrodite takes a female mortal who she thinks is very beautiful. Honestly, I don't even know if Aphrodite was the one that created Medusa. I know there's in the mythology, and I can't remember. But okay, so the goddess Aphrodite takes one of the most beautiful women in mortals in the world and curses her. At the same time, Aphrodite, say, brings beauty to the rest of the world. Is it right or wrong? Okay, and each individual would have to make their own choice, much like Lovecraft, right? Um, in our gaming community, there is a great desire to play. I mean, the game Call of Cthulhu has been around for what, 7 iterations, and there are plenty of people who love the Cthulhuoid mythos, and engage in it, right? Are they encouraging racism because the guy who wrote the stories and the other writers at that time were very close-minded and racist and stuff? You're gonna have to make that choice on your own. Can we? Is it, for some people, they'll say, listen, if you embrace one piece, you're embracing the whole thing. There are others who can say, listen, I can pick and choose the the material that I want. I can pick and choose and say, hey, listen, I want tentacle-mouthed creatures driving my players insane. I don't want them. I don't want stereotypical, um, images of savages and women who have no skill, and that kind of, that are second-class citizens stuff. Like, I don't want that in my game. Now, we do have people in our gaming community that are assholes, and if you were to play, say, 1920s United States, and someone were to play someone that's black, someone else plays someone that's female, someone plays someone that's Jewish, someone else plays someone that's Chinese, someone plays someone that's Jewish. In 1920s America, there are some game masters out there that are assholes and will treat those players and go, well, that's just the way, that's the way they would be treated, and then use that as an excuse to blast them with as much anti-Semite, racial, genderfied, misogynist language possible because they feel like they can get away with it. And so, do we have those type of players in game masters in our gaming sphere? Yes, because those people exist in the regular world, so we're going to have a percentage of those as well. So I would say that using hate and things like that, and using it as a tool to learn and to say, you know what, my setting's going to be a lot different, I want to turn it on its head. Yes, because but that's me, right? There's others who are like, hell no, I don't even want to play the game because I feel like it supports that, what is it, the movie, one of my favorite movies is The Usual Suspects, and Kevin Spacey is in it, and Kevin Spacey was, a sexual predator. If you consider me a hypocrite, that's fine. I'll agree with you, but it's weird. The older things that Kevin Spacey was in, I don't have a problem watching it. Something new today, I don't know if I could see it, right? It's weird, and I think it's just because at the time that I saw that movie, it had one of the best endings I ever thought of, and I didn't know that was going on. Now that I know he's like that, has my opinion of the movie changed? It hasn't. For some people, it has. There are R. Kelly fans out there who are like, I'll never listen to another R. Kelly song again because he was a sexual predator of underage girls, right? So it's really difficult for each of us to make that. Yep, Bill Cosby. Hell, they can make a whole. They can have a whole concert. Harvey Weinstein could produce the concert so Kevin Spacey could come out and do like a one-man show. R. Kelly could do the music. Bill Cosby could open up with some comedy. That'd be awesome. What's his name could write for it? What's the comedian? Beard. Shit, I can't remember his name. Yep, Michael Jackson could come out. I mean, hell, there's all. You could have a whole pedophile tour, sexual predator tour. Oh shit. Owen's like, will that be the next Predator film? Oh shit. Oh yeah, the Predator will step in and kill them all as they run for it. Oh man, you know what? We need to sell this to Hollywood. That golly. Oh shit. But you guys understand what I'm saying, right? Like it's not a matter of like, and I would not argue with you, like, because Zev brought up a good part, right? Yeah, Scott, I'm with you. Like, Bill Cosby was the most heartbreaking. I'm with you on that one because it makes you go back. It's kind of effed up because in your brain, we are creative people and we go back in our heads and we're like, so when you were, like, I don't know, the Huxtables, were you roofing innocent women? Like, what? It's like, when you were doing all these comedy specials, like, what? Yeah, Predator versus Predator. Tesla's like, yeah, children under 18 not admitted even with a parent or guardian. Yeah, oh shit. Oh man, you guys are so bad. Yeah, for me it was Bill Cosby and Kevin Spacey. Like for me it was those guys. And of course, if we translate this, let's end this on a little bit of an RPG note or something. It goes to show that even some of our worst villains in our RPG settings. Now, mind you, some of our villains commit quite a bit of genocide. So let's let's not claim that our dragons and evil liches and demon lords don't commit um, um, genocide in mass amounts. But yes, it seems like even like Scott Post says, he was America's dad. Why, Bill? Why? He made the ugly sweater cool too. Yeah, it's like, yeah. In this case, it would be predator versus predators. Yeah, but you know, could you imagine? Okay, it just goes to show that you could reasonably have some of the most, I guess, outwardly uh, pure, creative people in your setting, and then they just have a dark side. They have something so dark that like your PC paladin would grab the head of the paladin's order, grab him out into the street, and beat his ass or something for doing something like one of these, any one of the things that we mentioned from some of these famous people. And could you imagine a world where the majority of people feel that these individuals created something good, whether it's through art or science or education or government or something? And Richard Pryor, you think so? I don't know, man. I don't. Well, with drugs, I suppose with drugs, and he self-admitted to a lot of his problems, his addictions and things. So you could have something like that. So have it. I don't now, mind you. Oh my God! You talk about a session zero. You talk about X cards or lines and veils or whatever. If you're going to start including sexual assault and pedophilia in your tabletop RPG game, you don't need my permission, but sure as hell need the permission of the people at your table, because you don't know the background. You may not know the backgrounds of the people you game with, whether they themselves went through it or they knew somebody that did. So you sure as hell need to do that. But if you want to include those adult themes at your table for your people with your group, yeah. And by the way, what a great excuse to open up a can of whoop ass on some people when you really need an excuse to do so. You know, almost says, I remember that one protagonist in the Drakengard was actually a pedophile. Yeah, it's, and mind you, um, you can do some of that with what they call lines and veils. You can do that with like Fade to Black. The king sitting on the throne and looking over longingly at a small boy sitting on a pillow by his side, and the small boy has got like a tension in his body or something, and you could just fade to black, and the PCs are like, no, and you, as a game master, you're just like, yeah, yeah, I'm not going to tell you, but yeah, you feel, yeah. And believe you me, at least one PC, if not all of them, are like, yeah, can I go grab the king by the throat and drag him out into center square and like give him a good ass whooping? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, almost says it's extra weird if it's the queen. Actually, not so much. There are plenty of female uh, sexual predators out there. In the television show, one of my favorite, I always have to plug it. 4 seasons of the television show Spartacus. It aired on Stars, and in America, it is now on Netflix. I don't believe they deleted it, but the woman of the house of the Ludus, where she had her gladiators, she could not get yeah, Omen's like, female pedos are out there. It's just that they are underreported because socially, um a boys and men and women that are assaulted by other females are less reported because of the social repercussions of it. But in the show, she sexually assaulted, essentially raped one of her gladiators because she wanted that gladiator to impregnate her. And she basically was like, "You're going to deposit your seed in me. And by the way, if you don't, I'm probably going to have you killed." You know, that's not lust, right? That's not love. Okay, I mean, literally, he would be either beaten or put to death if he didn't do what she said, and of course, he didn't want to. And then in her mind, she became like, I fell in love with him, and he's just bitch, I don't want to touch you. You're you're like you're like evil and oily, and I want to kill you so bad. And but that was the thing, right? So yeah, and I mean, there's school teachers that have done so, things like that. Yeah. So anyway, guys, we've hit on some pretty dark and dangerous and nasty things on here. I might cut off the. I'm going to cut off the monetization on this because we're going to have to do that. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, Dead Man, for always being part of the community and just supporting channel. Harry popping in there with a super chat in there. I really appreciate it. It shows a lot of love from all you guys. So anyway, by the way, all the crap below, please like, share, subscribe. Over here, join Fantasy Grounds College if you want to learn about virtual tabletop. And we go live Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, my time. Guys, everyone have a great one. I will see thee tomorrow for World Building Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Bye.